Welcome, everyone, to this session of PD in your PJs. We are thrilled that you are here tonight with us. We are talking about literacy, learning, reflecting, and sharing with Seesaw. I'm super excited for this presentation. We have some amazing ideas for you today. Our plan for this session is we're going to talk briefly about some recording tips, reading fluency and feedback. We'll talk a little bit about Writer's Workshop in Seesaw. Sue is going to share some awesome literacy task cards. She's going to talk about Feedback Friday that she does in her classroom, and then we're going to try to take questions at the end. So if you've never been to a PD in your PJs before, you're in for a treat. I hope you have your PJs on like I do. We have amazing teachers that we bring in to share their real life classroom ideas, but we also know that sometimes it's hard to soak everything up. So we are going to send you this recording, and we're also going to send you the slides as well. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I got to write all this down. It's going to come to you in an email if you registered by tomorrow. So keep that in mind, and also the slides as well. These amazing ladies have agreed to share them. We cannot hear you speak. We can only hear panelists speak. So if you have questions, you can type them into the question box. That's where we will see them. But we're only going to answer questions at the end because we have so much content to get through here. A little bit about me. I'm Angela. I'm the one talking right now. I have been a kindergarten teacher for the last 15 years, 2 of which I was seesawing with my students. I'm also a certified reading teacher, so literacy is really one of my passions in the classroom besides, all sorts of other things, but I really, really am passionate about that, and now I'm on the Seesaw Teacher Success team. You can find me at Mrs. Gadke if you have other questions. And I want to introduce Cindy Vance. She is a California kindergarten teacher. She's been teaching kindergarten or first grade for 25 years. She's also reading recovery trained, a district literacy cohort member, and also a Seesaw ambassador. And you can find Cindy on Twitter as well. There's her Twitter handle. So, jot that down right now if you want to tweet to her during this presentation. And I'd like to introduce you to Sue Holt. Sue Holt is coming from Washington, the state, and she teaches 2nd and 3rd grade ELA and science. She's got 20 years of experience in pre-K through 3rd grade. She's a national board certified teacher. She also presents nationally for BER, so if you've ever been to any of their conferences or workshops. And she is also a Seesaw ambassador, so feel free to tweet at Sue as well. So we're going to start off with Cindy. Cindy is going to start sharing how she uses Seesaw to document growth in reading and writing. Hi, Cindy. Are you ready?
Hi, Angela. Yes, I'm ready. Hi, everyone. So excited that
Let's
you're
start
here
talking
today.
about this recording station. I giggle every time I see this. It's so exciting.
Thank you. So I've been doing Seesaw just this year in kindergarten. We started in August. I heard about it from a tech coach that we have in our district, looked into it this summer, and then started it, told my parents about it at back to school night. In trying to find a place for my kids to do fluency recording, I tried to buy one of those little locker stands, and it was really wobbly. So I looked around my room, and I noticed I had this great shelf full of stuff. I just unloaded it, and I have my iPad there, and my students can just go and record. It looks like this. So I now have 2 sides because my kids are so excited about recording. I needed another spot for them. So it looks, we've got independent iPads they can carry around, and then 2 stations that stay stationary for the kids. So you can look at the next one.
And Cindy, how many iPads do you have in your classroom? I know people will ask that question.
Okay, I have 4. You can see those 4 right there, but I just got 2 of those. My parents did a GoFundMe and got 2 more, and then I have 2 that are stationary, so 6 altogether.
Cool.
And this is what it looks like from the side. So this is where the iPad stays up on the shelf, and the little camera just needs to go through. At first I taped it thinking, I need the kids to keep it right there, but really untaping it and letting them move it where they needed to is the best thing I could do, so they can totally do that themselves. And they put their book right below. This is one of my students, so he's showing you how he does that. So they just log into Seesaw. This iPad's always in Seesaw already, and then their hands are free to turn pages, to point. Those are the kinds of things I want to see in kindergartners, what they're doing. I decided I wanted to do some weekly fluency checks. So I actually made a chart for the kids to upload into Seesaw every week. So I think that might be the next slide. So I just wrote their names down and said, this is the day I would like you to upload a book that you're currently reading in your reading bag, one that you've practiced or one that you're working on. And they can also do the same thing anytime that they want to, but these are the kids I really want to be sure that they do it. So every week I get something new. And so in here, and I think, Angela, do you have to click on that for me?
We're gonna get to
Okay,
see this video. I'm excited. So
so
this is
we'll watch.
it in action.
Totally.
Here we go.
In the sky, in the sky. The sun is in the sky. The stars are in the sky.
So can I just say one of my favorite things about this video? First of all, obviously the iPad's not moving, but I can hear you teaching in the background, which tells you that students are independently doing this on their own without you right by them. So I love that aspect too.
Very true.
Yeah.
And it sounds better, you know, when you normally listen to it. I can tell there's a little slowdown in the webinar. But so what I'm looking for there is just if they're fluent, if they're confident, if they're pointing. We do Teachers College, so we talk about the superpowers that they're using. What you see now on the screen was an article in the recent Reading Teacher, and it talked about a student who did not want to reread. He didn't want to work on fluency until the teacher recorded him and started sending it home every week to his parents. So although they weren't using Seesaw, it was the same idea, and she found that he was doing better with recording, greater fluency, better expression, more phrasing, and just more joy. He wanted to do it because he had an audience. And I think Seesaw, that's exactly what Seesaw is. It's an audience. These kids know their families are going to see it, I'm going to see it, and they're excited about sharing.
So we need to introduce Jacqueline Leathers to Seesaw is what we're learning right now. Make her life a little bit easier. So this is another reading video. Do you want to just set this up before we play it here? Oh, this is just another example of a student reading.
Yep.
How puppies grow.
She's a higher student.
How puppies grow. How puppies grow. Here are 6 little puppies. They were born only a day ago.
So you get the idea here, and obviously these examples will be on the slides as well if you want to look at the whole thing. But let's talk about comments for students and parents.
Okay, so the way I look at this, since it's reading workshop, I use this almost like conferring. So the student is over there recording. I look at it later on in the day, and I can make comments to the child. I like to do it audio, but I'll also type it in, and then I've asked my parents to read or have them listen to it. So I talk exactly like I do in a conference. So I give a compliment, I talk about what I notice, and I give them a teaching point, something next that they need to do. So it's kind of helping the child and the parent. So here's an example of something I talked to Anthony, who's a very emergent reader, and talked about the pointer power he was using. And then I just talked to him as if I was sitting right alongside him. And you just need to remind your parents then to read that. So you're educating both the child and the parent.
That's a good tip. I like that. Listening to others read. Tell us about this.
So this is just another fun thing we like to do with Seesaw. So you know, if you go to the 3 dots and you just do the print button, you would get this where you get the picture of the book and the QR code. So I just mounted it, and it's in my library, and kids then just go over with an iPad and they listen to themselves a lot, and their friends read books. So we can also talk about, are they being fluent, are they being smooth, are they using expression, but they really enjoy listening to each other read.
And again, just a different audience, which is motivating as well. So let's talk about Writer's Workshop a little bit. I'm going to go into this video here.
Okay.
So this is just a student reading their writing after, right?
Right. So I just encourage them if they finish a book or they think they're finished with the book, they can go and upload that into Seesaw. I don't have a schedule because they finish when they finish. And
Yep.
this is a child finishing a book.
At my trip at the airplane, we are going to Georgia. Then we landed. Then my uncle drove me to his house. His house was so beautiful.
That's a great job.
So what I like about that is one, I can't listen to all my students read their
Right.
stories, but I can look at it later and it's really visual for me to remember and see what she's doing, what she's not yet doing. So they just know to write and then practice before they go and record. That's really important to get them rereading, and then they're editing a lot when they notice that. And then when they read it again, they might notice something else. I've seen kids read it into Seesaw and then run over and go make changes, because when they're actually saying it out loud, that's when they're really noticing things that they could improve upon. Okay, and I kind of touched on this, but just that they can see finished pieces, it's almost a way of publishing, celebrating what they've done. It could be a work in progress. Um, they're changing and revising, and then I talk about who might hear it, so they're thinking about their audience.
Right.
Mhm.
So this is an example of a how-to writing. I think we'll save that for like a mystery reveal when they get the slides.
Very good.
Um,
All right, and this is very similar to what I did in reading. So it's just another way of me conferring and telling them things I notice, things I see, things that they could try.
Go stretching out the word more. Show us how to do it, Nico. Good. So you've got the M. What do you hear after the M?
so like a little mini lesson in action there.
Yeah, so I also just will take an iPad. That's not the recording station.
Right,
So
right, exactly.
thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. That was awesome. Sue, can't wait to hear about your idea. So again, Sue is working with second and third graders, English language arts and science. So Sue, are you ready?
I'm here and ready.
Yay! All right, so tell us about your tech setup a little bit. You've got two iMacs and one iPad minis, huh?
Yes, and I love having the iMacs in my classroom because when I ground my students from the iPad minis, they can still do some work on the computer.
There you go. They
Every
have
now and then, every now and then they have an iPad timeout. So
another.
because I teach an AM second grade group and a PM third grade group for ELA and science, and so I have two class codes, and so my students have to sign out and then they scan to sign back into post. So
Yeah,
I have my codes hanging up, and I color code everything. Second grade's orange, purple's
yep,
for third grade.
yep.
And then so I've created a little code that hangs up next to my Macs as well, because I found they were having to run over and pull down the poster. So I made its own to hang next to it.
Awesome.
And it works really well in the shared situation.
Right.
I created a couple of really homemade
Love it.
devices to help. One day I needed to help my kids video themselves, so I just grabbed a tissue box and stuck the iPad in there, and it worked really well. So I ended up covering it with paper to make it a little bit more sturdy. So that works really well for a child who wants to record themselves and hold the book at the same time. And then also I saw an idea from, I believe it was a Seesaw training,
Yep.
to use an office paper box and create a little area to speak into to help eliminate side noise. So I created one, and because of the AM and PM class, I have the two class lists hanging up on either side. That way, if I have a specific task I want every kid in the class to go through, basically the first student will record their fluency check, and then they'll run and hand off an iPad to the
Cool.
next kid. And so they just go down the list, and that way everyone does the same task if I have a specific task for that day. So
Love
that's what
it.
we use that for the most. And then I just wanted to point out, I just got these little retro phones, and I'm loving them. My kids have fallen in love with them. I bought the ugliest ones because they were the cheapest. They cost about $5 on Amazon. And my students plug them in, and it really has been helping with them listening to reading as well as listening to the recordings they make on Seesaw, and it makes it easier to hear them when they do the recordings.
Yep. Love that. All right, literacy task cards. I was so excited when you shared these in the Facebook group. So we're just going to jump right in. Go for it.
Sure. Well, I made these because I really wanted my students to feel like they had some accountability when we do independent literacy stations. So I do Daily 5 in my class, that method. And so my children are constantly working independently. And so I wanted a way for them to document that as well as for me to be able to see what they're doing and have some accountability. So I created the literacy task cards, and I post these in my classroom when we're doing Daily 5 as a reminder. And they are available on the Seesaw website, or when you get this link to the slides, you'll be able to click on it and it'll take you straight there, so you can download these if you wanted yourself.
And I'm just going to give you a clap right now, Sue, that you're sharing this with the world, because I love these. So thank you for being willing to just put your work out there and share with us. We love that.
Of course. Well, I feel like you have to, because Seesaw shares so much free with teachers that it's definitely a privilege to give back. So I appreciate that.
Yay.
So how I use it in my classroom. I post it, I display it up on the board, and I like to use slides because I can update it each day specifically to a specific task I want them to do. So my students have must-dos and then can-dos, and I pretty much let them just independently rotate through their literacy choices. I might tell them what to do, but most of the time they just get to go through the day on their own. But they do have to post what they did during center time.
Love that.
So basically, my kids choose an activity, and then they work quietly on their choice. Emphasis on quietly. We do a lot of practice for that. And then they are expected to report on the Literacy Center. I think the task cards are great at helping kids feel accountable. That's why I feel like that's so important. So I tell my kids, sorry, go ahead.
That independence, just building that in.
Exactly. That's why I really love the Daily 5 method, and it works for any literacy center really, but you just focus on independence so much. So what I tell my kids, and I do review this with them, and we do explicit teaching to talk about it, but I tell them you have to do what's inside the yellow box. You have to take a picture of your writing. You have to share what you did well or struggled with, or I do tell them you could record the writing, but I need to see what you actually did. You can't just say, I worked on writing. You have to show some evidence.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then I put the little question down below, here's an idea. You can think about it. So let me show you a few samples of actual kid work that they've posted. And I will say that I've just started using these task cards in January. I got the idea from somewhere to make them up. And so most of these posts are pretty recent. So this is some of my second grade work. Here's a second grader who was reporting on going to Great Wolf Lodge.
Okay.
Chapter 1, the arcade. The arcade at Great Wolf is fun. There is a claw machine. There is skee ball. Skee ball is a game where you have a ball.
So they're taking a picture and then just tapping the mic and doing that.
Exactly. And some kids like to take a video as they record. Here's a third grader. He's writing kind of a diary chapter.
Yep, so this is so that's like a little video.
Mm-hmm. And then, so it's a couple examples of how they share their writing work. And then for read to self and listen to reading, they take a picture of the book, or they record themselves actually reading from the book. I encourage them to talk about character, setting, plot, and author. It just depends on the kid. If you play the video, Angela, from Lace on the right,
is this the one?
They're not expected to record the whole book. They certainly can, but they can just record themselves reading one page.
He would say some new pronunciations under his back.
Good fluency there and expression. I love that.
And you know, I have to say that the parents love seeing this too. Not every parent is as active in checking what the kids are up to, but Lace in particular is. And I love what she posted after he reported on reading that book. He just said, "Hey, during Daily 5, I read this book and it was great. Okay, bye now." But then she commented and she said, "I wish I could love this 100 times. And
Oh,
I'm so excited to hear about your book. Please come home and tell me what the story was
right,
about."
right,
And
exactly,
so I just love that interaction between parents and
right.
the kids.
This book. It is about three aliens, how they have to leave their mom to find their own planets. And one of them doesn't stick together with the rest. That's what I did for Daily 5. That's only one of the books, though.
I love
So
that.
obviously it's noisy in my classroom when we're
Oh,
working,
yes,
but that's
right.
okay because
Absolutely.
that's just the real life of the classroom that we have
Absolutely.
going.
Absolutely. So we've got some second grade nonfiction text here.
Yes, pretty much every day during the week, I do expect my students, it's kind of their welcome work, what they do when they first come in. They go on ReadWorks and they read an article of the day. It's usually a short thing. And then they have to type up a few things that they remembered or learned about it. And then my students also go on to News ELA with a partner and they read a news article and then they're supposed to do a summary of what they read. So here's an example, and they're both from the same student. I asked them to take a screenshot of the article and then to share their learning.
Scientists have just discovered a new type of gecko. This gecko is hard to catch. The gecko has scales on the outside. The scales look like a fish scale. If a predator tries to catch the gecko, it will slip out of the scales. After a while, the gecko's scales will grow back. The gecko's tail.
So these are notes she's reading. A lot of the kids have
Yeah.
learned, or I've taught them to take notes as they read, and then she's just reading those notes off.
Or I wondered, because she sounded so amazing there. I thought, I wonder if they've taken notes before. So here's just some more examples, right?
Right, and this is a couple, I guess these are second graders too. Caesar, we do Genius Hour, so he was typing up research that he'd read about amphibians, reptiles is what he's studying. And then Delaney's working on a research project about volcanoes. And so that is her little summary of what they did during that station.
Awesome. So some of these, and when you get the slides, some of these have links that you'll have to come back and listen to. So word work
Yeah,
examples.
yeah. So here's some word work examples. My kids, this video on the left, you don't have to play it, but
Okay.
you can watch it at home if you want it. But it's basically a website where the kids are doing a word sort. And so these two children, second graders, were sorting the words by spelling pattern. And so Tegan was taking a video of Riley, and you hear them at the very end saying, "Oh, I beat your score," or something like that. And then on the right, there's a short audio clip of Trajan just explaining what he did during Daily 5, if you want to play that.
I did work on writing color code. The vowels are blue and the consonants are red. Thank you.
I love the consonants.
I know, exactly.
And then you'll notice, we're going to talk about Feedback Friday, but you'll notice at the bottom of some of these screenshots that you'll see feedback from actual kids, like the one that you're seeing now. You see Riley saying, "Good job, Molly."
Yeah.
So Hayden did his word work using an app. So he just took a screenshot of his work and uploaded that. Chloe actually typed her spelling words into Seesaw. I will say, though, I tend to discourage my kids from doing that because the auto speller will pop
Right.
up, so they
You'd have to
only
turn
have to
that off,
type a
right?
couple of the letters. Yes,
Right.
so you can turn that off if you want to. I actually like it for my kids, but not for spelling practice.
Right, exactly.
So I also have kids do read to someone, and so there's a couple videos that we don't need to watch, but they're in here for you, where the kids record themselves reading. Here today, this picture is actually just from today. The kids recorded themselves, their faces as they read, and then in the next slide, there's actually a video of the kids. You hear them reading those pages together. It's a really awesome. They recorded it themselves and
Cool.
managed to read really fluently in that example.
So check that out when you get the slides.
And then we also, for fluency practice, we do a poetry elocution. And so I always have my students take a picture of their poem. I read it fluently for them, and then they can read along with me until they're able to memorize their poem and read it fluently. And then this video or audio recording, is Trajan here practicing his poem. And I love that one of my third graders makes a comment on there that I love your poem.
Oh,
and
great.
Andy did his own self-evaluation and reflection, and he typed on there as a caption, 205 words a minute, I beat my goal. And he is a high reader, so
Right.
205 words a minute is pretty great for a second grader.
Mm-hmm.
Just a
So we
couple
had,
real
so
quick
yeah, go for it.
examples. Here's a comprehension. At the end of reading Boxcar Children, as a whole class, I had the kids create a Toontastic retell. And so there's that video you can watch and see how Brianna retold the story
Love
of
that.
Boxcar
That's
Children.
smashing.
And then I just want to mention real quick that for when I have my kids post, I actually turn off the approval. My kids post automatically go onto Seesaw just because they post so often. I don't want them to have to wait for me to approve everything. So
Okay.
I go over digital citizenship a lot. We
Mhm.
talk about the think process. It has to be true, helpful, inspiring, necessary, and kind. My students know that they're not allowed to use emojis. Now, for kindergartners and first graders, emojis are really cool because they can tell stories.
Yep.
We also have to talk about digital citizenship, and I tell them that if I start talking to the whole class, they're supposed to pause their recording because I don't want my voice to be on every
Right.
audio. And we do go over examples of work that show good examples of literacy activities and reflective learning. I do model quite frequently what their posts should look like.
And Sue, I'm going to start going really fast,
Yeah,
right?
go
Because we
for
have
it.
a few more minutes. So folders for each literacy center. I think that's a great idea. Using the calendar view so you're not looking at, the stream of all the posts. I love that idea too, to be able to see kind of all the work in one glance. And then I love this idea of Feedback Friday. So giving your students this authentic way to reflect and collaborate. So I'm going to get into this little graphic you have here.
Yes, so I just made this up I have two levels. One's for K because I tried to make it a little simpler, and it just guides the kids. I have my students, when they come in on Fridays, they just go and they find 3 posts by their classmates, and they just make a little comment. And I'm a little bit more, for the 3rd through 5th grade one that I have next, I'm a little bit more specific. I tell them they have to have a positive and specific comment or question. For the kindergartners, they can record the audio, but for the 2nd graders and up, I have them type their comments. And I have a few question starters, and sometimes I'll tell them to give feedback to 2 or sometimes 4. Here's a few examples of feedback that kids have given to each other. I love conclusion.
Yeah, you got so many good examples here of just this like dialogue that can happen.
And I do talk about specific versus just I like that.
Yep.
I point out the good specific comments. I do, of course, approve comments. I delete anything that's possibly negative. I do give them time to read comments that have been posted.
All right. So many ideas. I feel like we could be here, like we could spend more time together. I'm going to dig into questions here. So if you have a question for Sue or Cindy, you can type it in. I know our time, just to respect your time, is technically up here at 30 minutes, but I want to hang out for at least 5 minutes and try to get to some of the questions that you want to ask them. But if you're feeling like I'm good to go, don't, you can you can go there too. So I'm going to go actually to the next right here, so you'll see everyone's Twitter handle because that's one question that someone was asking. Let's see. So Margaret wants to know a little bit more about the telephones in the iPad jack. So Margaret, you got to get it on our Facebook page because that's all the rage, these little telephone listener, the little things that are going on. So you'll see info there. Karen wants to know, do you use portfolios for the parent-teacher conferences? Cindy, do you want to tackle that one?
Yes, definitely. When we met the first time, I showed them Seesaw and how they could get in on it, and I'll post things all the time that are specifically for what I'm assessing in the report card.
Right. So, exactly. And then we have Caitlin. How do you recommend having students record themselves without tablets? So, Caitlin, if you're using laptops or Chromebooks that have those mics embedded, you know you can do the same thing. You actually probably don't need this setup that Cindy has with the recording, apparatus because the computer is kind of like a tripod for you, so you can go about it that way. Eileen wants to know, if you're not one-to-one, how do you have students look at other student work to comment? So I know Sue is one-to-one, so that makes it a little bit easier, but do you have any tips, Sue?
I would just recommend that they have a little bit of time. I used to have, when I only had between 1 and 5 devices, I had a schedule where on Mondays, 5 kids got to have the device, or they just went through and, like I said earlier, you could have a list of your students, and Amanda gets a turn, and then she goes and finds Ben, and then Ben goes and gives the device to Christopher, or says, hey, Devin, it's your turn to go to the computer. So I just either develop a schedule or a sharing list to help them each have their own personal time with the device.
Right. They want to know, what is the app that you had for word work with the little letter tiles there? Do you know the
Oh,
name?
one of my favorites. Yes, that one is Word Wizard.
Okay.
It's a Montessori app, but it's incredible. It has more than just the movable letters.
Sarah wants to know, Sue, when you do Daily 5 and have each child do the literacy task cards, how do they know when they should stop doing the task card and start doing Seesaw, particularly in working on writing and word work if the tasks take longer than, that day?
So I just tend to give a little announcement about 5, because we do literacy centers for about 15, 20 minutes, and then I usually have a small lesson. And then I just give a warning or a warning reminder to say, hey, if you haven't saved something to Seesaw yet, do that now. And if it's a project that's going to take more than a couple of days, they just make a little comment on there. Does that
Okay.
answer the question?
Yeah, I think that's pretty quick. Ask again if she didn't answer it correctly.
Yes,
Let's see. Oh, Sue, so your Twitter is tweet Sue H, right?
yes. Oh,
Yeah, so we have
sorry.
yeah, it's okay. We have a little typo,
Typo.
so it's not tweak Sue H. That's a whole interesting other thing. Let's see. How much time do you spend each day checking on their Seesaw posts? So Cindy, do you want to take that one?
Yes, I sit during my lunchtime, I have to say, because I'm kindergarten and other teachers aren't having lunch at the same time. And it probably takes me 20 minutes, depending on how many people have posted that day. So it does
Right.
take time to look through. And I don't have, I approve everything in my class for
Yeah.
kindergarten. It doesn't go directly.
Well, and when I was in my kindergarten class too, I mean, basically, I would say kind of the same thing. It depends on what I want students to show that day or share, but maybe 10 minutes or so. Let's see. Rachel wants to know, who is filming these videos. Is what we are seeing in the videos of the children reading and pointing the same as what the parents are seeing in Seesaw?
Yes. So what they record that you see on there, that's exactly what the parents are seeing.
And only that child's parent gets to see that. So,
Correct.
exactly.
Yes,
Uh,
it's just going to that child's folder.
Elise wants to know, what has the response from parents been like?
My parents love getting this window into their students' day. Not every parent checks it all the time, but pretty much every day I'm approving comments from parents say, I love that, that looks incredible, good job. So I get a lot of positive feedback.
I agree. I think that's one of my favorite parts. I have parents that are out of town. They're traveling and they love to see what their child is doing in class, or they have questions about, are they writing? I'm noticing they're not doing very much, and then they see it, and then they, just like Sue had mentioned, it's those conversations. Sometimes I even ask parents. I post something and say, tonight at home, I want you guys to talk about this. So I think it's just a great way to get the conversation going and for them to encourage their child in class.
Exactly. So I know there's some questions that we didn't get to in here, but I know we also have, I want to respect our amazing guest here today that came. So just so you know, if you're thinking, oh my goodness, this is amazing, where do I go from here? Come back for another PD in your PJs. We actually have a Seesaw Teachers group on Facebook. That's actually where I pulled Cindy and Sue both from. I was like, I love your ideas. Come do a webinar. And they're also, of course, Seesaw ambassadors, which I work very closely with. But come back for more PD in your PJs. I'm doing a brand new to Seesaw webinar tomorrow that if you're thinking, how do I even start this? You can come to that one. There's tons of recorded webinars from all different grade levels, all different levels of Seesaw, and of course on Twitter. If you're not connected with us on Twitter yet, that is also a great place to go. And then here are all of our Twitter handles. So again, Sue is actually tweet Sue H. So that's where you'll find her. But if you have further questions or want to follow up, that's a great place to find them. And I would love, love, love if you would fill out the survey that you're going to get just right after this webinar closes. It'll pop up and it'll take you maybe 90 seconds to fill out, but we really, really love your feedback in terms of how you think this webinar went, but also things that you're looking for, hoping for in upcoming webinars. What do you need help with as you get going with Seesaw in your classroom? So Cindy and Sue, thank you so much for coming tonight. You had so many awesome ideas, and I can't wait for everyone to get your slides and your recording here as well. So thanks, ladies, for coming.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.